Let's step away from standard tech news today and dive straight into what is, honestly, a high-stakes corporate thriller. We're going to break down the most shocking sequence of events in modern Silicon Valley history. I'm talking about a story of ultimate betrayal, just unimaginable sums of money, and a triumphant, completely unprecedented return. Because, this wasn't just about a CEO getting fired. No, this was a trillion-dollar civil war over literally the most powerful technology humanity has ever created. Let's get into it. Imagine looking down at your phone on a quiet Friday morning and seeing this text message. Can you talk on Google Meet at noon? Pretty mundane, right? Sounds like a standard calendar invite. But for Sam Altman, the globally celebrated CEO of OpenAI, and really the undisputed face of the artificial intelligence revolution, this single text from his chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, was the beginning of the end. He figured it was just a standard technical update, but when he clicked that link, he was stepping straight into a trap.
Parte 1. A emboscada de sexta-feira, novembro 17, 2023.
The claustrophobic and sudden nature of this digital execution is what makes it so wild. There were no boardrooms, no long, drawn-out face-to-face debates, just a computer screen, a webcam, and a corporate execution. Look at the sheer speed of this timeline. At 11:30 a.m., Altman gets the text. At exactly 12 p.m., he joins the Google Meet. The entire board is waiting for him, except his closest ally, Greg Brockman, who is deliberately left out of the loop. Sutskever, reading from a script with his cold, robotic tone, delivers the fatal blow. He tells him, "Sam, you are being terminated from OpenAI. This decision is final." And by 12:30 p.m., just 30 minutes later, a brutal public blog post goes live, declaring the board no longer had confidence in Sam and accusing him of not being consistently candid. In precisely 60 minutes, the king of AI was totally dethroned. And here is the immediate, earth-shattering collateral damage. $13 billion. That is the massive financial stake Microsoft had poured into OpenAI. But guess what? Microsoft's CEO, Satya Nadella, wasn't consulted. He wasn't warned. He found out about the firing exactly 1 minute before the blog post went public. Microsoft was entirely blindsided by this ambush. And within seconds of the news breaking, their stock just plummeted, wiping billions of dollars in market value off the map instantly. Part 2. Moralidade contra o capitalismo. The ideological civil war. So you might be wondering, why would a board of directors purposefully detonate their own hyper-successful company? Well, it comes down to the impossible duality of OpenAI. On one hand, OpenAI was born in 2015, not as a typical Silicon Valley startup, but as a non-profit lab on a holy crusade, right? Build artificial general intelligence safely to protect humanity and ensure it doesn't destroy the human race. The board, including Sutskever and independent members Helen Toner and Tasha Ali, were deeply devoted to this moral mission. But on the other hand, Sam Altman recognized that this crusade required a Silicon Valley gold rush. He knew that reaching that level of intelligence required supercomputers that cost billions and billions of dollars. To get that funding, he built a hyper-aggressive commercial arm, selling to corporations and courting trillion-dollar sovereign wealth funds. This ideological split turned into pure existential terror over something codenamed Project Q-Star. Q-Star was a terrifyingly powerful new AI model capable of solving mathematical problems it hadn't been explicitly trained on. This is a massive leap toward true artificial general intelligence, AI that can outthink humans. The board firmly believed Altman was prioritizing market hype, speed, and profit way over critical safety protocols. They suspected he was hiding breakthroughs like Q-Star from them. To the board, firing Sam Altman wasn't some malicious business move. It was a desperate moral intervention to save humanity from a reckless billionaire.
Part 3. Cinco Días de Caos. The employee mutiny.
But here's the thing. What the board legally had the right to do, they operationally could not enforce. By Saturday morning, the tech world had descended into absolute anarchy. Altman's home in San Francisco instantly transformed into a billionaire's war room, while the board frantically tried to plug the holes in their sinking ship. First, they appointed Mira Murati as interim CEO to stabilize the company. But within 48 hours, she turned her back on them, demanding the board provide actual proof of Altman's alleged dishonesty. When they refused, she was out. Desperate, they executed step 2, hiring Emmett Shear, the former CEO of Twitch, specifically because of his strict views on slowing down AI development. They were trying so desperately to control the narrative.
Parte 4. O checkmate da Microsoft. Uma geopolítica power play.
The board completely underestimated the geopolitical chess game they had just entered. Satya Nadella essentially flipped the whole board over. He neutralized OpenAI's leverage entirely by announcing that Microsoft was not only hiring Sam Altman and Greg Brockman to head a new advanced AI team, but he offered a golden parachute to everyone else. Microsoft publicly promised to hire every single exiting OpenAI employee, matching their exact salaries. It was a masterstroke. With one move, Microsoft effectively acquired the brains of OpenAI without having to buy the company or deal with any regulatory hurdles.
This was the ultimate corporate mutiny. By Monday morning, a letter circulated within OpenAI. Out of 770 total employees, an astonishing 743 signed a letter demanding the board resign and reinstate Altman, or they would literally walk out the door and join Microsoft immediately. The board had tried to protect the mission, sure, but they had completely alienated the very people building it. And then came the final nail in the coffin from the very man who started it all. Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist who read Altman his termination notice, realized he had just destroyed his own life's work. He defected from the board and posted this on X. "I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions." With their lead technical visionaries switching sides, the remaining original board members were completely trapped in a corner. They had absolutely zero cards left to play.
Parte 5. A reviravolta e o retorno. The New World Order.
By Tuesday night, November 21st, just 5 days after the ambush, the board surrendered. And man, it is the ultimate irony. The coup failed so catastrophically that it achieved the exact opposite of its goal. The rebellious board members, Helen Toner and Tasha McCauley, who tried to halt commercialization, were systematically forced to resign and ejected from the company. Sam Altman walked back into the building victorious, fully reinstated as CEO. And to replace the outgoing idealists, OpenAI brought in traditional corporate heavyweights, people like former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers and former Salesforce CEO Brett Taylor. The nonprofit dreamers were replaced by Wall Street titans. So what is the ultimate fallout of these chaotic 5 days? Well, the attempt to restrain Sam Altman only served to remove every single obstacle in his path. The original nonprofit oversight meant to protect mankind was effectively broken. The dedicated safety teams that worried about existential risks were eventually dissolved or sidelined. Altman consolidated absolute, unchecked power, and OpenAI transitioned fully into a hyper-aggressive trillion-dollar commercial machine. It's like the house caught on fire, and when the smoke cleared, it was rebuilt as this impenetrable fortress of capitalism.
Which leaves us staring at a pretty haunting question. If the board of the most important AI company in the world couldn't stop the relentless march of profit over caution, who really controls the future of artificial intelligence? Is it safety protocols and moral missions, or is it unbridled market forces? Think about the massive implications of those 5 days and ask yourself what it really means for the future of humanity.